Nigeria is a very enormous and populous country, so the number of people living with HIV and AIDS is a lot. Although the prevalence of HIV over the last couple of years has dropped from 2.8% to 1.4%, but looking at the population of people in Nigeria, that leaves it to about 1.9 million people living with HIV in Nigeria. Hello viewers and welcome to Virtual Hospital Facebook page. My name is Teresa and today we have the MD CEO of Virtual Hospital, Dr. Oo Akinpeloye. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Well, we are really excited to have you here again on this page.
My pleasure.
And we believe that today you have a lot of information for people out there living with HIV and having battles with it, right, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Good. So we'd just like to start like this. So and I know there are a lot of people who are living in ignorance of their HIV status, but over the last couple of years, a lot of people are more aware of their HIV status. So I would like you to just tell us, sir, after a person discovers they are HIV positive, what next? What is the next step to take from there?
Thank you very much. I would like to start by saying that the concern of HIV in Nigeria is not over yet. And even though the attention might have been shifted to more pressing health needs or epidemic conditions like COVID-19 or other conditions, but it's important to note that it's not over yet. Those of us in the field keep seeing new diagnoses, probably new infections certainly, and that tells us that it's ongoing and people need to be aware of this. The good news although is this, that there's been a lot of progress, a lot of improvements in the treatment, in the care for HIV that makes it almost a no menace anymore compared with the early days when HIV concern or the HIV infection arrived in Nigeria, say in the 80s or 90s, or early 90s, late 90s, when an HIV diagnosis was almost a near-death experience, because the availability of drugs was a big deal. Many people died because they couldn't get access to drugs, even though they were willing to take the drugs. Those who were rich enough, who had enough money, for example, were able to buy, but many of them did not even survive because they couldn't get a regular access to those drugs until they developed probably resistance to the treatment because of inconsistency or what we call poor adherence. And right now, the story is a lot better. And what do I mean? If a person is diagnosed with HIV today, the person can live out his lifespan completely, 100%. If you can live 30 years, 40 years. I mean, there are people that were born with HIV, they've grown with HIV, they are now adults, they are married, they have their own children, and their children are negative, and the future generation has a lot of hope. And for even younger people or other people who get infected with HIV, somewhere along the road, have a very bright prospect of living a normal life because we have very effective drugs that are easy to take with less complications. And one very good news I would like to mention before I pass the baton on to my interviewer is that there's something called U equals to U that many people may not even know. Means undetectable equals to untransmittable. That means that if a person who is HIV positive is on antiretroviral medication and he's consistent with it, for the newer medications available now, within 3 to 6 months, the person can achieve what is called a non-detectable viral load. Not that the person is negative, but the person has very few viruses in his blood or her blood that makes it impossible for him or her to infect anybody through the sexual route. So there's a test we do called the viral load test, which counts the number of viruses in the blood. And if a person has what we call a non-detectable viral load, which for the most part means the person's number of viruses in a milliliter tube of blood is less than 20 copies, it means that the person cannot infect anyone else through sexual route. And that's good news for people that are positive. That means that the fear of infecting a spouse is reduced, even though we still encourage protection, like the use of condoms for people that are in what we call discordant relationships. That means one person is positive while the other is negative. We still encourage the use of condoms when they want to have babies. There are advices we give them that can help them have non-protected sex at those points. But overall, we'll say the outcome of HIV treatment in Nigeria is a lot better. Congratulations. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for that insight. So, in essence, you're trying to say the person discovering he or she is HIV positive is not the end of the world,
Absolutely.
and he or she can lead a normal life.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned something about not being after they get a non-detectable viral load, like the viruses become so few that they cannot infect another person. So does that mean they can go into marriages with non-positive people as well?
Oh yes. What that means is just like you said. First of all, anyone who finds out he or she is HIV positive needs to do the right thing. In fact, the way to know is to do a test. People live with a lot of assumptions when it comes to HIV. I remember once when a man walked into my consulting room requesting for HIV drugs. He had gone to town to buy, and someone directed him to see me. And this man was actually in the village where he took ill, then feared that he was dying because his HIV drugs were out already. So he dashed back from the village to Kaduna, went to buy in the market, and the seller directed him to see me. When he came over to my consulting room, in the right way, I had to screen him first, do a test, and when I tested him, I found out he was HIV negative.
Wow.
And this guy has been on drugs for 10 years, about 10 to 12 years actually. So, I tried to counsel him that he was HIV negative, but he refused. He actually walked out on me because he believed he was HIV positive. I understand that those kind of things happen, so the first thing to do is don't assume anything. If you find out you're having, even if you have no symptoms, everybody should have an HIV test done. If you find out you're HIV positive, that's not the end of the world. It's something that is easy to treat, and the treatment is accessible these days. Just walk into any facility, either a general hospital or a private hospital. Many of the private hospitals offer HIV care and treatment. And if you come to virtual hospital, for example, which is why we operate a virtual hospital, we make the HIV treatment a lot more flexible. We make it more confidential for them. We do their treatments in the place of their choice. We deliver their drugs to them in their homes or their offices or any location of their choice. So we do their tests for them in any location of their choice. Deliver their test results to them as well in any location of their choice. So all this makes it easy for people who are still worried about, say, their status, their social status, their physical, or what people think about them, stigmatization, as we may call it, So we have a treatment model that circumvents most of the bottlenecks in the regular treatment models that you find in other hospitals. But having said that, when the person is HIV positive, it's important to take your treatment. Once you start your treatment, then you are safe. Now this brings me to the question you asked. You're safe. You're not only safe, but you safeguard the people that are closest to you. Like your spouse is safe. Your children, if you're a woman, a woman who is here to have babies, her children are safe to a great extent, even though we still have to give some prevention to the newborn babies, called liquid nevirapine for a while. All that is meant to reduce their chances of ever getting infected. But the successes attributable to these preventive measures are exceptionally encouraging. And once one does the right things, you can actually get married to somebody who is HIV negative.
Okay.
If the person is in love with someone who is HIV negative, what I would simply suggest is make sure you try as much as you can to disclose your status to the person you're getting married to. Don't hide it from that person, because your relationship is going to make you intimate, and in that it could amount to a betrayal if you hide your status and the person finds out down the road. So open it up, let the person be comfortable. If the person needs some counseling, get the person to see a doctor or a counselor. Let them explain the risks associated, how they're very minimal or almost non-existent, and let the person make an informed decision. And once that is done, I think you're good.
Okay, so from what I can draw now, you're trying to say that HIV positive people can get married to HIV negative people.
Yes.
And they can breed children who are negative at the end of the day.
Absolutely, yes.
Wow, so
yes.
thank you for that. So now